Hi, everybody, and welcome to the brand new Art of Being podcast, which is a change from the Healthy Happy Writer show. Because as I've just said to today's guest, Warren Stribling, that's actually quite limiting, and we've just agreed that there aren't that many maybe healthy and happy writers out there. There might be one or two. So this will allow us to have a much broader conversation, but we will bring writing and books and novels and the writing that Warren has done into the conversation today. So welcome, Warren.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, it's really good to be talking to you. So what time is it where you are at the moment then?
It's 9 in the morning in Mexico City.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yes, we're I think
right.
about 6 hours behind you guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe a bit more than that at the moment. It's now 20 past 3 in the afternoon here, so 9 in the morning. So are you a morning person? Would you consider
No,
yourself to be a morning
not at
person?
all. I mean,
Right.
it depends on what time the morning starts, but generally, I'd say I'm not a very good transition person. You know, it takes me a while to go to sleep, it takes me a while to wake up. So, what
Okay.
time that is isn't that important. It's just the process that can be a bit difficult at times.
Yeah. And as long as you go through the process, it's okay because you're going to come out of the other end, aren't you?
Yeah, of course, always.
Some way. So on your website, you describe yourself on the very first page, on the home page, as an airman, legionnaire, teacher, and a writer. Now, I know what it's like to be eclectic. So I was wondering how all of those four things all combine to create the person that is Warren Stribling.
Oh well, that's just basically my adult life. But yeah, so basically I joined military service, right out of high school. Um, and that was in the United States Air Force. And then after I served there, I wasn't quite happy with the U.S. military. I had my disagreements with it. I was a bit of the disgruntled veteran, you could say. And so I went to go join the French Foreign Legion. It was kind of like a second chance sort of thing. For me, it was more of just a second chance to give the military a second chance to be what I always imagined the military should be. And so I went into the French Foreign Legion. And it was more what I had hoped, but unfortunately it was fairly short-lived. After about 2 years of serving, I was injured in service. And when I got out, I had joined military service right out of school. So I didn't really have a college education, and here I was kind of broken, in France, and I didn't really know what to do. And I was like, well, what do most foreigners do when they're in a foreign country? Teach English. So I kind of started teaching English, and I did that for quite a few years. And yeah, eventually, I knew it wasn't my calling. I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed the dynamics. I enjoyed helping people learn. But I just knew it wasn't something I wanted to do my entire life. And uh, and writing has always been something I've enjoyed doing. It's just never something I thought of as like a real profession. I guess maybe it's part of my upbringing. I'm not sure, but it wasn't until these past couple of years I've actually sat down and actually tried to make it into a real thing for myself. And so yeah, that's kind of the process of the whole soldier to teacher to writer.
That's an interesting journey, isn't it? And, I was wandering around your blog um, a little this morning, having a look at the novels, the series that you're writing at the moment, and also your short stories. I had a look at a couple of those. And it seems to me that you draw very much on your own life experience. Because most writers don't include themselves in the fiction that they're writing, but you do.
Yeah, I think it seems more honest. I think you can know a lot about a subject. If but I think to really like make something authentic, to make something people really can connect with, it has to seem genuine. It has to seem authentic. And I think that every writer does put himself in the story. I mean, even if I was to write, a space opera, obviously it wouldn't seem maybe as realistic as the first person that I usually write, but I still think that you're going to find, different versions of the author and each character that you see. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely put myself into it, and I think that was just kind of what helped me to start with as well. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, You know, I've always written a journal, so everything I've always written has always been kind of a, you know, for myself. And I think the very first thing I wrote was kind of for myself. I think if nobody would have really, you know, liked it, the first book, then I probably would have just left it as was and moved on to the next project. Because I do have kind of a different project in mind that I would like to write that isn't as personal and as intimate.
Mm.
But for this one, people seem to really like the first one. They wanted to know what happened to Will, and so yeah, I ended up writing a second one, which I'll probably would turn into a third one. But then after that, I'm going to go to my dystopian future that I've kind of been trying to build a world for.
Right, that seems to be sort of the aim of quite a lot of writers, isn't it? Is to move out way out into the future about what's going to happen to humanity. And one of the short stories I read was Mrs. Warren and Hemoglobin. And it's an observational tale. Very short
Yes.
flash fiction, isn't it? An
Hmm.
observational tale of just a moment in time on the street.
Hmm.
But you captured the interaction, well, the internal interactions, I guess, from the character Will,
Hmm.
really beautifully. And I was wondering, you know, did that short story come about because of various things that you'd observed in the real world? You know, you talk about the homemade hazmat suit, and the snippets of conversation that are coming through the window. And I wonder if you were sort of drawing on real life for that.
Probably not as much in that, but I mean, like I said, I think everything a little bit comes from real life. Maybe not so much mine. I heard some funny stories, mostly from you guys in the UK and then back home in the US. You don't really see that too much here in Mexico, but like with the hazmat suit, you know, I've seen some funny memes. I've seen some, you know, interesting news articles of people making their own hazmat suits, and so that was more just inspired from what I had read and from what I'd seen online. It's actually nothing I'd actually seen myself in person.
Mm.
As far as the hemoglobin conversation, I wasn't sure if you read you read the short story, but these flash fiction short stories I put up are usually based on a contest from Furious Fiction. It's an Australian writing contest, and one of the words I had to use, I think, was hemoglobin or something along those lines. So I had to come up with a conversation that involved that word. And my wife and I, we always have these very strange and interesting conversations, you know, sometimes often late at night, and they can get really bizarre. We're talking about black holes. We can talk about, you know, the human body. And so I just kind of imagined a conversation that I would have with her. I mean, I've talked to her enough that I can just have her voice in my head. So I just kind of played out a dialogue between me and her that pretty much sounded like that. So
You sound very like my husband and myself. You know, I'm sure if there were bugs in the house and they were listening to our conversations, sometimes they'd probably get quite worried about the sanity of the people that were living here. Um,
yeah.
because that's the thing about a conversation, isn't it? And I guess this is an example of it, is you never know where it's going to go when you start it, because we don't, we never set out to plan a conversation, or I don't know if it's in your case, if I ever set out to plan a conversation, you know, a serious conversation with someone because I've got to get a message across, it never works out the way that I expect it to. It
No,
never
no, it doesn't.
plays out the way that I'm either hoping. It's always something different, and there's always something fresh and interesting in there.
Definitely. And that's, you know, and it's the uncertainty in life that makes it interesting. So, you know, you just kind of have to roll with it and be happy with whatever comes out of it, I guess.
It is, isn't it? You know, and life is like that. You know, my experience of life is that life has a tendency to just work its own way out, as long as we don't get in its way and
Hmm.
cause it to trip up. That's how I generally experience life and think of it. And, you know, other elements of the writing that you've got, you know, when I was looking at your blog post, it's a very different flavor, or your blog posts, a very different flavor to the fiction writing, aren't they? Because they are very much more about the concept of life, the universe, and everything.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the blog is much more, you know, it's me kind of doing one of my philosophy rants, or just, I'm very interested in philosophy and psychology. So it's kind of just me getting to rant a little bit, but it's also, it's a lot like journaling, and it's a lot like my short stories in the sense that, you know, most of my writing is for me to try and figure things out. You know, I don't want to sound like I'm an expert. I don't want to sound like I'm some sort of life coach or, you know, qualified, you know, psychologist. But I do like enjoy reading about those things, and I do try, you know, improve myself, or at least become more self-aware. And that helps me to do that by writing it out. And so a lot of times, if I write something out and it seems like something that could be worth sharing or it could be enlightening to someone else, you know, then I'll kind of, you know, work it a little bit so it sounds more like a blog article, and then I'll share that with people. So most of the things that you've read is probably something that I've worked with myself, on myself, you know, and this is kind of the results of what I come up with. And I usually try, as always, end it with the same concept, you know, of just being compassionate, being understanding, you know, being caring. So it's definitely a different theme, but still with the same, I think, internal motivation as with all my writing. And that's sort of a dive into the inner world and then sharing it with the outer world.
So, where did that sort of motivation, what was the genesis of that motivation then?
I don't know. Maybe I guess it started when I was young. I mean, I've always enjoyed writing. I mean, I remember writing like these little short stories with a friend when I was like in junior high, when I was like 11 or 12. And it kind of was one of those things that we got caught in class. Like instead of passing notes, we got caught passing these stories back and forth. We were basically just kind of co-writing them. And so when we got caught one day, you know, the teacher made us stand up and read them aloud, you know, that typical story. But the thing was, is we read this story aloud, and we were kind of like involving, it was kind of like this weird fantasy, you know, thing. And we kind of just involved people in our classrooms, you know, in these stories. And, you know, it just made the entire class laugh. And it kind of just turned into this thing where, you know, we started like sharing these stories every week, you know, in school. And, you know, every week somebody would die off from the classroom, you know, and things like that. So it just kind of turned into this big, you know, game of who's going to die this week, you know, in their story. And so I think it started off with that. That's my first real experience of writing and enjoying writing. Where the motivation came from to dive into the inner world and share it with the outer, I think that I don't know. Maybe it came when I first started, kind of in my adult life, and I think I was, you know, I was kind of on my own in many ways, and I was kind of struggling a lot. So I think I can't remember if somebody told me or if I just kind of found it by accident, but I just kind of found that just writing things out, just, you know, even if it's still things that you're worried about, even if there's still problems in the world, somehow just writing it out just kind of takes a lot of the weight off your shoulders, you know. And so I think that's what really kind of kept me writing, you know. And then it wasn't until later I decided to kind of start sharing that sort of stuff.
There's, there was a book, and I can't remember, Julia, I think it's Julia or Julia something, that who was the author of it, and it's called The Artist's Way. And it's basically, you know, what you're talking about, but from the art perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So writing out your inner world, sort of trying to bring out that inner, the inner philosopher,
Okay.
if you like, or the inner witness, I guess would be a better term. So, you know, because we all have that inner witness. We're not always aware of it being there, but we all have it. It's that little sort of voice on the two voices on the shoulder, isn't it?
Okay.
But yeah, she talks about it in very pragmatic, philosophical and spiritual terms as well. And I just wondered whether that had been your experience.
That I kind of have like two voices that kind of have a dialogue inside. Um, I do prime practice a lot of perspective. I don't know that it's actually like two voices. I definitely love philosophy as well. So yes, definitely there's a philosophical aspect to it. But no, I definitely always try and get perspective, and that's one of the other benefits of writing it out is that I can go back and read it. You know, I mean, I can think some of, you know, I can have somebody do something what I think is mean or bad or something like that, and then, you know, writing it out, I can kind of get past that initial, you know, anger, you know, or, you know, frustration or disappointment, you know, that I get from my perspective, and I can kind of, maybe I have a better chance of giving them the benefit of the doubt that, okay, well, maybe this is why they did this, and this is why they thought this, you know, and this is why they acted this way. So it's maybe not so much like I have two people inside of me as much as, I kind of make room for other people to come in and maybe give a bit more of their perspective. So I'm not so judgmental.
So how has that changed you? Having that, the ability to see that, has that sort of had an effect on how you see life?
I mean, it probably has. I actually was just kind of laughing with my wife the other day because having a bit of a tiff with like a family member, and before it would aggravate me, and kind of, I think very very much before, maybe 10 years ago, I would have just like gone head on straight at him, let's get into a fight about this.
Hmm.
And then maybe 5 years ago I would have just like buried it inside, and even though I would have said no, I don't have a problem, it would have just ate away at me, and I would have just been irritable all day, and I just would have been frustrated all day. And so now I've kind of gotten to the point where I can kind of take it in, and I can still feel little pangs of, like of annoyance or things like that. But I was mostly kind of laughable, at this point. It's I can kind of take the time and, like I said, kind of see the perspective. So I think for me, the most part is it's helped me. Well, a little. I guess you can, from the outside, it may look like discipline. A little bit of discipline and control over my emotions, but in reality, it's more of just not letting my emotions quite have the control over me they used to. It's not that I'm controlling them. I'm just kind of not trying to hold on to them or let them hold on to me. So it
It's
definitely has changed me.
yeah, that's an interesting perspective, isn't it? Because one of your blog posts was, I've written it down, that was it, 3 Zen ideas. And there's something that the Buddha or the Buddha either said, or a Buddhist teaching, which is that all life is suffering.
Yeah.
And um, the way that I see that phrase is very much from a perspective that life itself isn't suffering. You know, just life as it naturally rolls along isn't suffering. It is the judgment or the perspective that I bring to what I'm seeing unfolding in life that creates the suffering from me. So it's what I think about things. Because, like I said, life just has it just works. It works as long as I don't get in its way, and as long as I'm sort of not judging it, and being
Yeah.
rather accepting, like you. Um, and I sort of got a sense of that from that particular blog post, the 3 Zen ideas, that was
Hmm.
I think one of, or associated with one of the first ideas that you had, because I think you wrote down um, believing that all of life is maelstrom and despair. But surely that can only be our thinking. I don't know what you.
Well, no, definitely. I mean, a lot of times I exaggerate, especially in my blog articles, and a lot of times I use a lot of sarcastic humor. That maybe the sarcasm is so subtle, that it can just go over missed. But a lot of times I'll exaggerate something just to kind of, not so much, yes, to make a point, but also to kind of, if the people think this way, then I'll try and swing it all the way in this way, just so it finds itself in the middle. And that's kind of the way I talk sometimes, where I'll just, be a bit dramatic or, sarcastic or things like that. No, I definitely, like you were saying, it's all about like perspective, and it's kind of something that, the Chinese writers or, Zen philosophers from, 1,000, 2,000 years ago, or even Shakespeare, I think even said something along the same lines. It's if you just stop thinking, then you end all your problems. There are really no problems in the world. It's our thoughts that make them into problems. Um, so yeah.
Have you come across Sid Banks and the three
I'm sorry, no, I
principles?
haven't.
No, okay. It's just an interesting perspective. It might be something. Well, I'll leave that one with you as a sort of a little tantalizing uh, thread. If you want to follow, if you
Okay.
want to follow the thread, there's a thread to follow. Um, but you had a sort of a a similar take, not a similar, well, yeah, I guess a similar sort of take on it, because you also wrote a blog post about Camus' The Plague. Was it
Mm-hmm.
The Plague? Yeah, The
Yes,
Plague.
the plague and that absurdism. Mm-hmm.
The absurdism, absolutely. And you know, how that very much is a reflection of where we are in both practical terms dealing with coronavirus, but also in those more esoteric terms, in terms of the plague isn't the plague of coronavirus isn't the problem, is it? The plague that we're dealing with is actually how humanity deals with humanity, and how
Exactly.
humanity deals with the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of find that I, on all of the stuff that I was reading through your blog, I was finding that, or elements of that theme running all the way through it. And I'm just curious as to how that plays out in real life for you, if it does, because it might not,
If
because you are a
how
writer.
the coronavirus plays out for me. I'm sorry. Can you?
No. This thread of there's an IT term. It's called WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's perfect for these times. So at the moment, you know, the world is seeing coronavirus, and it's seeing this whole. They're seeing it's seeing a collapse of something, whatever that might
Okay.
be. Seeing a
Mm-hmm.
collapse of something, but that isn't what. Although coronavirus is a real thing, it
Mm-hmm.
isn't actually pointing to that as being the problem. The problem is much more fundamental
Oh
to
yeah, definitely.
humanity.
I mean, and that goes into something that is really really deep that I don't think I've ever had a chance to actually talk about it out loud. So this might be interesting to try and
Oh,
put thoughts into words. Um, but yeah, a lot of people, you know, they can be afraid of things like the coronavirus, or you know, and we could talk about a lot of things, and most of what we talk about is we're trying to like escape this concept of death. You know, we're trying to live longer and things like that. And you know, and for me, I've just half the problems that you hear talked about in the world, it feels like it could be one big solution, and it's just not be afraid of death. You know, why do we have to prolong life? Why can't we just learn to live in what we have now? And why do we have to try and keep hanging on to one more day or 10 more days? You know, things like that. So you know, that really, I think, and maybe I don't know, that's what Camus was talking about. I think there's got to be some touch of that, because you know, the absurdism is, you know, we could be taken at any moment. You can, you know, be a health nut and get hit by a train, you know, or something. So you know, it's not to say that you shouldn't take care of yourself, but it's just to kind of accept the reality that, you know, we are human, you know, we are mortal, we are going to end one day. um, and you know, instead of trying to keep coming up and using our big brains to find ways to avoid that from happening, maybe we should use our brains and probably our hearts to be more acceptance of what is, as you said. So so yeah, I mean, and that would just be, I think, a very fundamental and very huge evolution of mankind, if we could get to a point where we're not running from death. And I think maybe before, you know, religion and all that sort of stuff, they tried to help people with that. Obviously, religion has got such a bad name now, and it's kind of been corrupted a little bit. But now we're kind of focusing, you know, in science and things like that, and we've evolved scientifically and many things like that. But I think we're kind of regressing, evolutionarily speaking, when it comes to like the spirit and finding accepting more of who we are and the reality of who we are.
well,
So
it
that would be
feels,
huge.
yeah, it feels like we diverged, didn't we, at the point of the Enlightenment? We diverged into having this dualistic view of the world, that there's us as the individual, and then there's everything else that's out there. But the more people I talk to um, over the years, and particularly it feels like there's some gathering momentum at the moment, the more it feels like it's starting to do a pincer movement. It's
Hmm.
almost coming back to it,
Yeah.
because and I guess part of that is probably because, you know, what science is showing us not necessarily medical science, but around physics, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
is where we came from in the where that is what we understood to be real at the point that split occurred, and we're now
Mm-hmm.
having to come back to accepting that we are all one, because actually that's what now the science is starting to show us, but
Mm-hmm.
other bits of science haven't caught up with that yet. They've still got to
Yeah.
do that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of getting strange. You know, you find out that 99% of who you are is space, and Zen Buddhism was always about finding the space, and it's just like, oh well, that's most of what I am is space, and things like that. And like you said, it's kind of coming full circle. It's like we're kind of at the end of the hero's journey for humanity, so it's kind of like we're coming back full circle to where we started, but with obviously
Yeah.
the new knowledge and understanding of ourselves. So yeah, it's definitely interesting times.
It is. And of course, it comes back to what you were saying about that concept of death, because if we can start to, even if we can just start to accept the science of mostly being empty space as a human, which is,
Mm-hmm.
when you start trying to think about it, completely blows your mind. Um,
Yeah.
if we can start to accept the concept of that, then there has to be something else that's going on in being human that is not of this body. So the body can go. The body can go because that, whatever the essence is, the soul, people will call it, the spirit, consciousness, is still there. We're still a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, probably, possibly not quite in the way we think or the way we want, but we're still there somewhere, somehow.
yeah, yeah. We wouldn't be sort of retaining the idea of Linda or Warren, but we
Mm-hmm.
would be part of the idea, the bigger idea.
Mm-hmm.
I
Definitely.
did say that this conversation could go anywhere. One of the things that I found most interesting, when I was having a look at your blog, was your photos of Maverick.
Yes,
So
yes, he was definitely he's a companion of mine. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, so he was probably the most consistent thing in my life when I had him in my life. I mean, I guess you kind of have a basic idea of my background, but I moved around quite a bit. I didn't get him until well, I was in the Legion at this point, but I was on my way kind of out of the Legion, or I was just out of the Legion, and I'd always wanted a dog. I grew up with dogs. And I'd always wanted one, but with the military in the U.S. and then in the French Foreign Legion, I was never in one place for like more than a few
mhm.
months, always moving around and that sort of thing. So that was kind of always in the back of my mind. If I ever get out, or if I ever get to a place that I know I'm going to be there for a few years or more, I'm going to get a dog. And and it just so happened that we had like a dog in the Legion named Onyx, and I was kind of like one of its caregivers. Its owner was actually a friend of mine, and he went to like Guyana for the jungle training for 3 months. And he's like, "Hey, can you watch while I do this refresher course?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can watch Onyx," And I really fell in love with Onyx, and he saw that and that sort of stuff. And so when I got out, he called me up one day and was like, "Hey, Onyx had puppies. Do you want one?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I actually knew Maverick's mother, and so I took Maverick, and uh, and yeah, and he was kind of like from that time on. I mean, I lived in Marseille for a couple years, and then I moved kind of to a town outside of Marseille, France. But he survived like three different girlfriends, three different countries. Sorry about that.
That's
Wife
okay.
is coming home.
That's the family.
Puppies on the doorbell. Yeah. um, so anyway, yeah. So yeah, he was kind of the most consistent thing for like the 6 years of my life. I mean, he's literally traveled more than most of my family, for that matter. So, yeah, and he just passed away basically kind of right when I got here to Mexico and kind of and met my new family in a sense. So it's kind of like he held on to me and kind of guided me through until right there at the end when he knew he could finally let me go. He'd been a sickly dog the last like 2 years of his life, so
Mm.
it was kind of like he almost just held on long enough just to pass me off to somebody else that could take care of me.
Mm.
So, yeah.
So Maverick appears in your novel, I believe.
Yes, yes, he does. The second one. I mean, he appears in
Yeah.
the first one as well. He's not quite this focus. He's introduced in the first one, but the second one, he is definitely kind of the the angel in the second one for sure.
Okay. So would you like to sort of tell us a bit about the series that you're writing? Because you've got one of the books published, which I think is,
Hmm.
I'm going to get this wrong, I know.
Sin and
Sin
Zen.
and Zen. Yeah. So that's the
Yes.
first one
Hmm.
that's come out.
Sin and Zen. Hmm. And then the second one is going to be Anger and Hope, and it actually comes out tomorrow.
Oh, does
So
it? Oh,
it
wow.
was, yeah, it comes out tomorrow. Yeah, so it's all ready. It's just waiting, you know, for that release button, and that I guess will be really just a few hours at this point. So
Oh, I'll
yes,
keep my fingers crossed for you that it all goes okay. Yeah.
yeah. So Sin and Zen and Anger and Hope. Like I said, Sin and Zen. When I wrote that one, it was meant to just kind of be a standalone. It was kind of me just testing the waters with this whole writer thing. Um, you know, I think as with a lot of people, you know, you kind of, you know, you have a story to tell. Going from a story to a novel is one thing, and then actually, you know, wanting to hit the publish button or wanting to share it is a whole another step as well. And so that was kind of really my, you know, my testing the waters in this. And it was just something I felt like I had to write, even if I would have never published it. You know, it was just something I wanted to write, just for myself, if nothing else. And but I did end up publishing it and everything, and people actually seemed to like it. I was kind of surprised. I was really bracing myself for a lot of negativity about it. But now people really seem to like it. Even people that didn't like it, like they said, oh well, there's too much sex in it, or you know, it doesn't really seem to have a point, or you know, I'm not quite sure I understand it, or it's not really my type of fiction. You know, things like that. You know, those were like the worst reviews, and they still gave like 4 stars. So it's like, you know, they would still follow it up with it was well written, or things like that. So, you know, for somebody to actually read the whole story, even though they don't like it, or they don't like that type of fiction, or it's a bit too, you know, graphic or naughty in certain ways, for them to actually read it and still enjoy it enough to give it 4 stars for one, but also just to finish it. I know for me, if I don't like something in the first 100 pages, I'm like, well, I don't have time for that. There's too many books to just finish a book that, you know, I
Mm.
don't even care for, you know. So you know, and that was a big compliment to me, and kind of validated me as an author. And you know, people started messaging me on Facebook and email, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that I have all that contact information out there. But yeah, people started messaging me and I was saying, well, what happens next with Will? You know, does he get married? Does he settle down? You know, things like that. And so there was enough interest that I was like, well, I could probably write out another story. And you know, the first book, as they say, every author's first book is kind of about everything and nothing. You know, and Sin and Zen, you know, kind of is like that. But I kind of could say that the general theme was about love. You know, and it's obviously about more of eros, like the typical idea we have about love, like more of the romantic love, you know,
Hmm.
lust and things like that. And so and I was like, well, maybe I can stay on the theme of love, but I can just explore the different themes of love. And so this second one, Anger and Hope, is I think it's got maybe it doesn't have any romantic love in it at all, to be honest. I mean, it's got touches of it, but it's more just to connect Will to his past and connect it to the first book. But it's mostly about philia or family love. So it has Will coming home to America after being gone for many years, and kind of being the black sheep of the family. And he kind of tries to reconnect with his roots. You know, we talk a
Hmm.
lot about how, you know, people don't have much perspective on life because they don't travel. You know, they need to get out, they need to explore other cultures, other languages, other people, things like that. But you know, sometimes I think that some of us that, you know, we travel all the time, we kind of lose the perspective we were born with, you know, or we get maybe a bit too arrogant, or you know, and we say that, oh well, they, you know, they don't know anything, you know, I know everything because I've traveled, I understand perspective.
Yeah.
But you know, we kind of lose touch with our original perspective, you know, and so I think it was kind of a good exploration for Will, to go home and to reconnect with his family and to kind of get back in touch with his roots, something he'd kind of probably lost touch with a lot of ways. And so it explores the themes of shame and pride, with nationality, with home, with culture, with identity, and then also anger and hope, because you know, family can be difficult, especially when, you've maybe haven't seen them since you were a teenager, and then you left home right after school, and now you're trying to reconnect with them as an adult, and you have all this adult life experience that they are completely unaware of. And so you're kind of different. You don't feel any different. You think you're just naturally evolved and grown naturally, but and so it's exploration into family love, and how much can family love hold, and can anger, can it be bested by hope, or possibly do they come from the same place, and explores different ideas like that, all in Will's mind mostly, and with his interactions with his family.
So that's being published tomorrow. Have you got a third
Yes,
one
that's
in
being published
mind?
tomorrow.
A third one in mind following on from that, or are you going to move into the dystopian future?
I do have a third one in mind. I'm going to try and do a trilogy. A trilogy just sounds nice, and it will go into the divine love, the agape.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously not, and I'm not really even a preacher, so agape is going to be a tough one to really kind of, talk about, and have Will explore. I've got a pretty good idea of what I want to write about it, and it's definitely going to use romantic love and philia to kind of help him as stepping stones to reach this divine love. Um, but it's definitely something I'm still working on. I don't know that I'm going to write it now. I'm kind of getting a bit excited about this dystopian world thing, and I've kind of been like allowing myself to get distracted and world building with that. So I may go ahead and kind of just jump into that boat for a little while, just to ease my curiosity and give me a bit of peace of mind with that story. But I would kind of like to finish this trilogy before I
Mm-hmm.
jump into the next series of books. So we'll kind of see how things go. I'm kind of, in two boats right now, but we'll see which one takes the speed soon enough.
Okay, and we started the beginning of this conversation with that outline of who you are on your website, which was the whole ended with the writer. Can you see
Mm-hmm.
something else being added to that as well? Because you've got airman, legionnaire, teacher, writer. Is there another comma?
I don't really know, to be honest. Right now I can't see that far. I still like to make goals for myself. Like we were talking about earlier. You just, even with conversation, you have this idea of what you want to talk about, and then it just goes way off in another direction. I
Yeah.
kind of accepted that about life. Every time I ask myself, did I see myself here 10 years ago? No, not even 5 years ago. So I think it's nice to have goals and ideas, but I've become less attached to the results of them, I guess. So right now, what I want to be is a writer. I really don't have any plans to be anything else. I mean, I may. I mean, that's possible. Before this coronavirus thing hit, actually, I was actually considering going back into teaching a bit, kind of more as an excuse to travel and things like that. Just. But so I mean, I may kind of go back into that. I'm not sure, but anything else that I'd like to do, not really. I mean, unless we're talking about more personal things, like maybe family life, things like that. But as for profession, I would just say that a writer is a pretty ideal thing to be right now for me, and it's something I hope to definitely continue and hopefully get a little more accreditation and validation with it, so I can feel comfortable in those shoes.
Yeah. So it's a case of sort of just waiting to see what pops up next then.
Yeah, I'm doing my best to go with the flow of things. Yeah.
Yeah, always a good. You can't do anything else actually, can you? Because we can't control what's going to happen. So why bother trying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, like I said, good to try and follow a star, but if it
Yeah,
gets cloudy, then just hang on and see what happens. But yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So we're sort of coming to the end of our time together now. And it would be really good if listeners could find out where they could find out more about you, or perhaps how they could connect with you.
Sure. So I tried to make that as easy as possible. My website is wstribling.com. That's WSTRIBLING.com. I also have pretty much the same social media tag for what social media I have, which is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and Goodreads, things like that.
Hmm.
And it's at SW Stribling. And And yeah, that's probably the best two ways to find me. I have an email as well, obviously, which is write, as in, write a book, at wstribling.com. So yeah, it would be great to hear from anybody. And yeah, sure, definitely. I also have obviously an Amazon authors profile page, all that good stuff. So
So plenty of places that people can find you. And when I post this, I'll put all of those into the blog post that accompanies it as well. Okay,
thank you.
so I've really enjoyed our conversation. It's definitely gone in a direction I didn't think it would go in. You've given me
We still talked
much,
about writing.
yeah, much food for thought as well. It's been great to meet you, Warren.
Likewise, thank you.
And good luck with the publication tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
You're very
Good luck with
welcome.
the new podcast.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it'll be what it'll be.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Warren. Nice to meet you. Bye.
Likewise.